Suddenly, Luffy's eyes fluttered open, his head still throbbing with the remnants of his suppressed memories. His surroundings were unfamiliar, but the warm sunlight streaming through the trees and the sound of waves crashing against the shore provided a sense of comfort. He blinked slowly, trying to clear the fog in his mind, but images of the past began to surface. He realized that every moment spent with the harsh elders was a fraud, something embedded into him to chain him. Each memory felt like a sharp sting, and with it, a growing sense of loss. As Luffy sat up, the two figures sitting nearby caught his attention. Shanks sat on one side, his ever-present calm expression softened with concern. Garp was on the other, his usual stern demeanor giving way to a rare, vulnerable look. Garp hugged Luffy tightly as soon as he woke up, and tears began streaming down his face. Shanks offered a soft smile, holding out a bowl of food. Luffy hugged his grandfather tightly before his hunger overtook him, and he began eating like a madman. Pieces of his childhood with the elders, the training, the forced obedience, mixed with scattered memories of his life before. His carefree days with Ace and Sabo, his dreams of becoming pirate kings, his connection to the people who truly mattered. As the memories flooded back, so did the pain. Ace, the brother he had lost, the brother he had failed to save. The grief overwhelmed him, and his hands trembled as he clutched the food. His chest ached with the weight of the past, his emotions bubbling to the surface. He remembered everything. Tears welled up in his eyes as he spoke, his grief raw and unfiltered. The memories of his life with the elders felt like a dark cloud over him, but beneath that cloud, the brighter memories of his true family, his brothers, and his dreams burned fiercely. Garp and Shanks exchanged a glance, knowing how deeply Luffy had been affected. But before either could speak, a loud explosion shattered the calm of the island, sending a tremor through the ground. The sound of distant gunfire followed, and the unmistakable roar of chaos filled the air. The red-haired pirates immediately sprang into action. Shanks' crew was well-trained and among the best, their weapons at the ready as they formed defensive positions around the camp. The Gods Knights, the elite force loyal to the elders, had arrived, and the elders themselves were not far behind. Shanks' eyes narrowed as he scanned the horizon. It looked like one of the elders was nowhere to be found, but his eyes landed on a familiar figure, Figureland Garland. Garp clenched his fists, his face hardening with determination, and Ben Beckman loaded his gun. But before either could make a move, Luffy stood up, his body trembling with both anger and newfound resolve. The haze of grief still lingered in his chest, but it was quickly overtaken by a burning rage. As the elders and their knights closed in, Luffy's body began to crackle with power. His emotions surged once again, but this time he controlled them. His eyes blazed with fierce determination as his haki surged, igniting the air around him. Gear 5 began to awaken once more, but this time, the surrounding clouds were not dark and chaotic. Instead, they were white, reflecting the clarity of his resolve. Luffy's body pulsed with power, but this time, the uncontrolled fury of Gear 5 was tempered by his regained sense of self. The drums of liberation echoed loudly, filling the air with a rhythm that shook the very ground beneath his feet. The energy around him was charged, and the air crackled with raw, uncontainable power. Luffy began laughing loudly as his body floated in the air before suddenly coming to a stop. He looked at the elders and told them he was no longer their puppet. As the elders approached, their expressions unreadable, they seemed unfazed by Luffy's transformation. Saturn, Marcus Mars, and the others held their ground, ready to subdue the rebellious pawn they had once controlled. The Gods Knights moved to intercept, but Luffy's overwhelming presence sent them recoiling. With a single swipe of his hand, the air itself seemed to bend to his will, creating shockwaves that sent the knights flying. Saturn, disappointed, stood in front of him and told him that he was going down the wrong path. He said they'd have to eliminate him to bring balance back to the world. Luffy's eyes burned with defiance as he launched himself at the elder and sent him flying. The training they had given him was torturous, but he had become much stronger than they ever intended. Now, that strength would work against them. The elders, sensing the threat Luffy posed, steeled themselves, but they had underestimated the young man they had once sought to control. As Luffy stepped forward, the very earth seemed to tremble beneath his feet as if it too recognized the change within him. The drums of liberation echoed louder, and his conqueror's haki filled the air. With Shanks, Garp, Marco, and the rest of the red-haired pirates at his back, a war against the Gods, Knights, and Elders began. A war that would shake the very foundation of the world. Each man standing on the isolated island was a force of nature, and as such, each clash rang across the seas. Then, on the horizon, a familiar face appeared. Under a storm of righteous fury, Monkey D. Dragon arrived with Sabo and the rest of the revolutionaries. Dragon floated across the sea as lightning crashed around him. He loudly proclaimed to the elders to give him back his... With